The sky didn't just split. It shattered. One moment, the clouds above Metropolis were calm. The next, a swirling tear of light ripped through the atmosphere like a knife across glass. And from that tear, something came crashing down. A young man, wearing a straw hat, and smiling like falling from the sky was normal. People screamed. Traffic skidded. The shockwave hit windows like a hammer. But the boy just stood up, dusted his vest, and said, "Whoa, that was a crazy jump." Seconds later, a sonic boom rolled across the street. A streak of blue and red shot through the air. And then he landed. Superman. The Man of Steel stared at the stranger with a calm, controlled posture. But his senses were already racing. His hearing picked up an odd heartbeat pattern. His vision scanned bones, muscles, strange energy in the blood. Not human, and not from this world. "Are you all right?" Superman asked. The boy grinned. "Yeah, I'm Luffy. I'm looking for food. Also, have you seen my crew?" Superman blinked. This wasn't a threat. This was confusion wrapped in chaos. Before he could reply, Luffy stretched his right arm straight past Superman's shoulder. Not moved it. Not swung it. Stretched it. 20 feet. 30. 40. Until it snapped back like a rubber band. Superman's eyes widened for the first time in weeks. "Whoa," Luffy laughed. "You're strong. You didn't even flinch." Superman inhaled. This was no ordinary visitor. His strength, his biology, his strange entry from what looked like a dimensional tear. And if a tear opened once, it could open again. There might be more coming. He had to contain this, fast. "Luffy," Superman said carefully, "you're far from home. And until we understand what brought you here, I need you to come with me." Luffy tilted his head like a curious kid. "Why? Did I do something wrong?" "No. But you could be in danger. And so could this city." Luffy smiled, but not in agreement. He smiled in challenge. "Sorry, but I don't take orders. I'm the man who'll become the Pirate King." The words echoed across the ruined street. Superman didn't move. He simply gazed at Luffy with a look he usually reserved for metahumans on the edge of violence. "You don't understand," Superman said quietly. "I'm trying to protect you." Luffy tapped the brim of his hat. "Then show me how strong you are." A warning. A test. An invitation. Superman sighed. "Please don't make this difficult." But Luffy had already spun his fist back, stretching it behind him like a slingshot pulled to its limit. "Goma Goma no." Pistol. The air cracked as his rubber fist rocketed forward. It slammed into Superman's chest. The shockwave blew out every window on the block. Cars flipped. Alarms screamed. Dust exploded upward like a geyser. Superman slid back a single inch. 1 inch. Luffy's eyes lit up. "You're tough. This is awesome." Superman lowered his head. His cape settled behind him like a warning flag. "All right," he said softly. "If that's how it has to be." He vanished. A sonic boom erupted where he stood. Luffy barely had time to react before Superman appeared behind him and tapped him, lightly, on the shoulder. The tap launched Luffy through 4 parked cars. He bounced off a truck like a rubber ball and sprang back with a grin even wider. "Now we're talking." Superman's face stayed calm. But inside, he was calculating. Luffy's speed. His durability. His elasticity that absorbed blunt force like a shield. His energy levels that didn't match any species on record. This boy could actually fight him. And he was enjoying it. Luffy charged again, feet hammering the ground. He twisted his arm into a spiral. Goma Goma no rifle. The spinning punch drilled towards Superman like a living bullet. Superman countered with a palm strike, measured, controlled. The collision detonated like a grenade. Dust swallowed the street. The ground shook. Streetlights bent from the pressure. When the air cleared, Luffy stood grinning with steam rising around his arm. Superman floated slightly off the ground now. He wasn't playing anymore. This needs to end, Superman warned. Luffy cupped his hands around his mouth. Hey, do you know where my crew is or not? Superman's jaw tightened. This boy wasn't evil. He wasn't hostile. But he was reckless. Unpredictable. A danger without meaning to be. Before Superman could reply, Luffy stomped the ground, and his skin began to inflate. His bones, his muscles, his torso, everything expanded like a living balloon. Then boom, white smoke blasted outward. His skin turned glossy. His heartbeat thundered like a drum. Steam hissed from his pores. Here second. Superman felt the temperature shift. Luffy vanished in a blur. He reappeared right in front of Superman, fist cocked back. Let's go round two. Superman barely raised his forearm before the punch connected. This time, Superman actually moved. Dragged backward through the air. Forced across the sky until he steadied himself 3 city blocks away. He stared at his arm. It tingled. He hadn't felt that in years. Luffy blinked and appeared right next to him, bouncing on his heels. You're fast. But I'm faster now. Superman's eyes narrowed. All right, Luffy, show me. And then the battle exploded across Metropolis. Shockwaves rolled between skyscrapers. Air rippled from each collision. Superman's heat vision carved streaks across the sky. Luffy dodged with rubbery grace, twisting and snapping like an elastic comet. Every punch was a thunderclap. Every counter was a storm. People hid. Alarms blared. The entire city watched a war they couldn't understand. But in the middle of all that chaos, Luffy was laughing. He loved it. Every second. Every clash. Superman gritted his teeth. He couldn't enjoy this. Too much was at stake. He had to end it. But how do you stop someone who turns damage into momentum? How do you restrain a force of joy and chaos fused into one? He exhaled slowly. No more holding back. Superman shot upward through the clouds. Luffy followed instantly, streaks of steam trailing behind him. They collided above the atmosphere. A shockwave rippled the clouds into spirals. Superman locked eyes with the pirate. Luffy, listen to me. Nope. Luffy shouted. Not until you fight with everything. And he launched himself again. Superman's heart hardened. Then he whispered for words Luffy couldn't hear. I'm sorry for this. What happened next would decide everything. And the real battle hadn't even begun. The sky trembled. 2 figures, one wrapped in steam, the other glowing with solar fury, rocketed through the clouds like dueling meteors. Each impact cracked thunder across the stratosphere. Each blow distorted the air like bending steel. But this fight, this wasn't about strength anymore. It was about beliefs. Superman hovered above the curve of Earth, breathing steady, eyes burning with controlled heat. He wasn't angry. He wasn't worried. He was focused. Below him floated Monkey D. Luffy, still grinning, steam rolling off his skin as his heart pumped like a war drum in overdrive. You're strong. Luffy laughed. But you're still holding back. Superman closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. I don't want to hurt you. Then you'll lose. Luffy shouted. Because I'm giving everything. He kicked off the thin air with enough force to bend the cloud layer. He spun. He coiled. He aimed his fist like a cannon. Jet Gatling. Hundreds of punches fired like bullets. Superman moved like a whisper. He weaved between the blows with perfect efficiency, every motion minimal and precise. He caught 2 fists mid-flurry, twisted, spun behind Luffy, and pressed a palm to his back. A gentle touch. A devastating result. Luffy blasted downward like a falling comet. He tore through the clouds. He re-entered the atmosphere like a meteor wrapped in steam. The air screamed around him as he plummeted straight toward the ocean. Superman winced and launched after him. Luffy hit the water with an explosion so violent it split the sea in 2 towering walls. Steam burst outward. White foam shot skyward. A crater formed in the waves. Superman landed above him, hovering, watching. Then he froze. Luffy wasn't moving. Not sinking. Not floating. Not swimming. Just still. And then the truth hit Superman like a lightning strike. Luffy couldn't swim. He shot down instantly, cutting through the water like a spear. He reached Luffy in seconds, eyes closed, body limp, the seawater draining his strength. Superman grabbed him and darted upward. The ocean exploded behind them as he burst back into the air and laid Luffy on a floating piece of debris. "Luffy, wake up." The pirate coughed once, twice, then grinned weakly. That was close." Superman's voice hardened. "You almost died." "Yeah," Luffy laughed. "But it was fun." Superman's jaw tightened, frustration boiling. "You call nearly drowning fun?" "No," Luffy said, sitting upright. "The fight was fun." He stretched an arm lazily, then pointed it at Superman. "And we're not done." Superman shook his head. "You can't keep going." "The ocean, I know," Luffy interrupted. "But I've got something else." Steam swirled. Heartbeat thundered. Veins pulsed. Superman felt it before he saw it. The air tightened. Pressure cracked around them. Luffy's skin darkened. Muscles inflated. Bones shifted with a rubbery snap. Smoke burst outward. And the pirate rose to his feet with his body coated in glowing, rubber-hard armament hockey. Gear fourth. Superman floated back a foot, instinctively bracing. Luffy punched the air once. The air bent from the impact. "Round 3, he shouted. Superman hesitated. This form was powerful, dangerously powerful. And if Luffy had hockey, then this world wasn't dealing with just elasticity. He took a breath. "Let's finish this quickly," Superman murmured. But Luffy was already gone. He zipped forward with speed that twisted the clouds. His body bounced like dense rubber, snapping back into motion with impossible angles. Kong gun. Superman crossed his arms just in time. The punch detonated against him, blasting him across the sky. He tore through 2 thunderclouds before stopping himself midair. His arms tingled again. This pirate was no joke. Luffy appeared behind him, not stopping for a second. Rhino Schneider. Superman vanished, appearing behind Luffy in a blink. Enough. He grabbed Luffy by the vest and hurled him upward. The atmosphere cracked. Luffy roared and twisted mid-launch. Leo Bazooka. 2 rubber fists slammed into Superman's chest. He flew backward, carving a tunnel of displaced air that screeched across the sky. He steadied himself, dusting off rubble from his suit. He wasn't hurt, but he was impressed, and he was done holding back. Superman's eyes glowed. For a moment, Luffy stopped grinning. The sky dimmed. Clouds trembled. Solar energy gathered around the man of steel like a miniature sun. Superman spoke with a voice that carried across miles. "Luffy, listen. You're strong. Stronger than almost anyone I've faced." Luffy puffed out his chest proudly. "Yeah. But this is where it ends." Superman moved. Not fast. Not quick. Instant. He appeared behind Luffy and tapped a nerve cluster in his neck. A Kryptonian pressure point strike. Luffy's eyes widened. His body shook. Gear 4th flickered, then collapsed. Steam rushed out of him. Muscles shrank. Color faded. He dropped from the sky. Superman caught him gently before he fell more than a few feet. Luffy groaned, still conscious, still stubborn. "That was dirty," he whispered. "It was necessary," Superman said. "You would have destroyed this world before you even understood you were doing it." Luffy blinked slowly. "You're tough. I like you." Superman smiled faintly. "And you're impossible." Luffy laughed weakly. But something else happened. The sky cracked again. The same tear that brought Luffy here. Open once more. Superman turned sharply. Energy spiraled. Lightning flashed. A massive shadow appeared inside the dimensional wound. Someone was coming through. Luffy raised a hand weakly. Oh, that's probably bad. Superman's eyes narrowed. Is it one of your crewmates? Nope, Luffy whispered. Definitely not. The tear widened. A roar echoed across the sky. A monstrous silhouette stepped forward. Superman tightened his grip on Luffy. All right, he said. Round 4 is going to be different. Luffy grinned, half-conscious. Yeah, this time we fight together. And the tear kept growing. As something colossal crossed the threshold, the shadow that emerged from the tear was enormous. A creature unlike anything Superman had ever sensed. Muscles twisted with unnatural angles. Skin shimmered like molten metal. Eyes glowed red, hot, furious, alive. It bellowed. The sound split the clouds and made Luffy wince. Superman's cape fluttered violently in the shockwave. This was no simple visitor. This was a cataclysm. Luffy, hold on. Superman shouted. The pirate grinned through the haze of exhaustion. You scared me? I'm not scared yet. Superman exhaled. He had to act fast. He shot forward at Mach 10, straight at the creature. Every punch carried the force of a freight train. Every strike bent reality slightly. But the monster barely flinched. Luffy, now fully recovered, tapped into his Gear 4th, Bound Man, steam bursting from his body, and launched a series of punches that rattled the air. Kong Gun, Jet Culverin, Rhino Schneider. Each strike collided with the creature's body, producing shockwaves that could flatten mountains. Yet, the beast stood, calm, unyielding. Superman realized something terrifying. This wasn't just strength. This was adaptation. Every hit, every punch, it learned. It adjusted. The monster's eyes locked onto Superman. It roared, and the roar carried a mental weight. A psychic wave that bent the sky. Superman staggered back. He'd felt fear before, but this was something else. Luffy's grin faltered. Steam hissed as his muscles flexed violently. He felt it too. You can't win by force alone, Superman muttered. He had to outthink this being. The creature lunged. Faster than thought. Striking with claws that could carve continents. Superman barely caught the blows, parrying each with heat vision bursts and precision strikes. The force made the earth tremble. Luffy, catching Superman's intent, bounced off the air like a cannonball. All right, time for Gear 4th, Snake Man. His body contorted midair, twisting and stretching with lightning speed. He launched dozens of punches. Each hit aimed to exploit a weak point he had already calculated instinctively. Superman nodded. The boy had genius combat instincts. A rare mind. He needed that mind right now. Together, they danced around the monster. Striking, dodging, observing. Every movement synchronized by pure instinct. The monster hissed, realizing this teamwork threatened it. It split the air with a shockwave, then smashed both Superman and Luffy backward into the city below. Buildings crumbled. Streets shattered. Metropolis groaned under the battle. Luffy groaned. Man, you're heavy. I think we're underestimating it, Superman said. He felt the energy radiating from the creature, dimensional, cosmic. And then it happened. The monster raised one claw and slammed it down. The entire planet trembled. Luffy jumped forward. Superman flew at the same speed. Both collided midair with the monster, striking at the exact same moment. The collision produced a massive shockwave, sending fragments of debris into orbit. A beam of light shot from the monster's core, burning the clouds into streaks of fire. Superman clenched his teeth. His eyes glowed. He poured everything he had into one punch. Solar energy flowed like rivers through his fists. Luffy, using every ounce of hockey and rubber power, coiled his arm like a spring-loaded cannon. They struck simultaneously. The punch hit the monster dead center. Reality seemed to pause. Cracks appeared across its molten body. Energy ripped outward like a tearing star. Then explosion. A blinding flash. The sky burned white. Wind howled like screaming banshees. For a moment, it seemed like the world itself would collapse. And then silence. The monster was gone. Dust drifted across Metropolis. The city was battered, but alive. Superman hovered, chest heaving, cape tattered. Luffy, panting, landed beside him. For a moment, they just stared at each other. No words. No laughter. Just mutual recognition. "You're crazy," Superman finally said. "You're crazy too," Luffy replied, grinning. "But you? I like that." Superman exhaled, shaking his head. He wasn't sure if he was exhausted or just relieved. This isn't over," he said. "The tear will close, but it could reopen." Luffy tilted his head. "Then we'll meet again. And I'll punch you even harder." Superman smiled faintly. "Maybe. But next time, you won't be so lucky." A moment of calm. The city below began to stir. People peeked from rubble. Metropolis was battered, but alive. The heroes above looked down, not as enemies, but as allies forged in chaos. Then the tear in the sky pulsed once more, shrinking and finally closing. Luffy's smile dimmed slightly. "This place is strange, but I like it." Superman floated beside him. "You'll find your way home, Luffy. But remember, strength alone isn't everything. Responsibility matters." Luffy tilted his hat. "I'll remember, and I'll get stronger anyway." They both laughed. For the first time, Superman felt a spark of hope. A reminder that even in the strangest of battles, courage and freedom could coexist. And somewhere, in another dimension, new threats were already stirring. The battle between freedom and responsibility was far from over.